Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome back to Survived. Chris Hadaway, Karen Monda, Paul Hill from the Dirty Oar, and our special guest, Kevin Faulk from the local fireMedic. He's our local fireMedic. He's going to sit in with us and help us have this great conversation. Hey, thanks for tuning in. We're happy to have you back. We're happy to be back. We're down one person a day.
We're down Doug. He flew out early this morning to Arizona, doing some incredible work out there this week, and then off to Chicago at the end of the week. But he will be back for our next episode in 2 weeks.
Excellent. So we know that we will have Doug back in the room, but we actually just got our first pour from Paul Hill. Welcome back, Paul.
Thank you.
You want to tell us about the pour?
Yes, this is our latest beer. We just introduced this on Saturday at the Rocky Water Brew Fest. It is a pumpkin spice milkshake sour. In the words of Chris, it shouldn't work, but it does.
It does. It does.
And it is delicious.
And it smells
5.3 ABV and available in the tap room starting tomorrow night.
And where can we find you at, Paul?
We are at 329 King Street in Cocoa Village, right next door to Norman's.
Hey, I know that you have a big event coming up. It's the reboot to the grand opening. So it's our second year at the Dirty Oar. Yes. And when does that happen?
We've rescheduled the anniversary party for Sunday, November 10th. We'll have a number of food trucks, big tent set up in the back parking lot, lots of tables, chairs, lots of space, a lot of good new beers, and just all-around good time. Noon to 10 p.m. that night.
Hey, so if you're local, then put it on your calendar, Sunday, November 4th. We want to see you there. Come out, say hello to everybody. November 10th, I'm sorry.
Good night.
Good morning. I don't know. Say something. It'll be a
we'll
grand
be there
time.
In the morning.
It'll be a grandioso time. You can actually get to taste some of the beers that we've actually had on the show. And if you haven't been there yet, please stop by, say hello, mention that you're a first responder, that you're part of the military. They always take care of everybody that comes in there. It's a quaint place, super nice. We love our friends at the Dirty Oar. Paul, we're so happy to have you back.
Thank you. Happy to be back.
Thank you.
Not fully rested yet, but getting there.
The rest will come. Just keep turning out good beers. That's all we can ask for.
Cheers.
Cheers, everyone.
Cheers. I love it. Perfect.
Yeah. Jesse.
And one for Doug.
And one for Doug. Good stuff.
All right, so we're going to jump right into it. And the first thing that we always want to start off with is one of the reasons that we always do the show. And one of the reasons that we're having this ongoing conversation, why we bring guests into the show to talk about what's happening in the first responder world. And to date, I just got some updated numbers and actually another set of numbers that we haven't been able to capture. So to date, 180 law enforcement officers have lost their life to suicide. And the newest numbers that we have today are 124 fire EMT medics that have lost their lives. So if you will, just real quick, take a quick 3 seconds. Think about somebody that's near and dear to you that's a first responder, and I'll keep the time. All right. It's a long time. That's a lot of people, and we've surpassed the numbers from last year.
Yeah, I was just going to say for law enforcement, that number just definitely surpasses last year's total numbers and every year preceding that. So, and then, of course, we have these new fire statistics, and that's just heartbreaking. We've been saying every week that we don't have the numbers for fire, but we knew that they were high, and indeed, it's showing now that those numbers as well are very high and are climbing. And I think it's important to point out to everybody that for both fire and law enforcement, we are seeing death by suicide in higher numbers than we're seeing line of duty deaths.
And it's important to have this conversation because we can't get any better if we can't even talk about it. So today we're going to create some more value. This is the very first time that we're able to bridge the gap on this show, and we have Kevin Faulk with us. And
thank you.
Thank you for being
for
here.
having me.
We are so excited, and we hope to have you return because we want to acknowledge that it's not only law enforcement officers that go through hardship and deal with traumatic experiences in the workplace, and then what does that equate to in the job and in our home lives. So now we're growing our team, this is a very important day to even have this podcast, that now we're working together, and hey, we got to be real, and we have to have the conversation. Never an easy conversation to have. Never do I ever feel that when we are talking to somebody about this, one of our loved ones, one of our brothers, one of our sisters, that we can tread lightly on the conversation. So with that, I mean, we have 100 different ways to go, but Kevin, can you share with us some of the things that we need to know as a general public, as an audience, how we can help firefighters and EMTs responding to calls, and what that looks like? So for us in law enforcement, we go back, we stick together, and our home lives, we kind of block that and shield it, and we don't express that with anybody. And how can we start this conversation to build our group and help save the lives of our brothers and sisters?
Yeah, so one of the first things is to recognize the differences between law enforcement, your fire rescue and EMS. Having a wife that's coming up on 13 years with local law enforcement as well, I kind of get a different view of it than what most firemen would be able to have a view of, having a wife that's in law enforcement. I think one of the biggest differences for us is, we're always, we have engine and rescue houses. So the difference for us is when we run that bad call, we go back and we have four, five, six other brothers or sisters that we can sit around the table and we can kind of debrief things with. Whereas the big difference, obviously, in law enforcement, you guys
we go to the next call.
Right. Traditionally, you guys are by yourself in a car as well.
Right.
You can 56 with each other and kind of meet.
Right.
But obviously
56s meet up together. Keep going.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I was going to say that's from just hearing my wife say
right.
it so
Cop
much.
talk.
Yeah.
Cop talk. Yeah, no, absolutely. We use codes and signals, so
Yeah.
if we throw one out there, we'll try and clarify for someone that's maybe not familiar.
Yeah, she'll probably be laughing right now that I said that.
Right.
Not just meet up. With
I don't
somebody
think
else.
Doug used his signals.
Well,
No.
and once we get comfortable with the people that we're around, we can actually talk regular. So that's one of the things is it's a shortcut to say, hey, instead of meet up, we're going to 56. I mean, that's short. So.
Well, Kevin, it was one of the things that I was thinking about when I was driving here tonight, thinking about the similarities and the differences between fire and police work. And that was the one thing that I came to, is that after a call, you can all go back to the station and, like you said, debrief and support each other. And you have time together. You may get called out on another call right away, but your shifts are they 48 on?
24 hours on, 48 off.
So you have that time to actually communicate and connect and help each other, whereas with law enforcement, it's not always like that.
And then, that leads me to a whole bunch of thoughts, because I don't ever think, I look through my bubble, and my bubble is you go to this call, you deal with the call, and you move on to the next call. In the city that I work in, the pace is kind of busy. So there's not a lot of time to reflect, and that time to reflect actually happens when you go home. Mm-hmm. So, huge difference that you have that time to debrief with your group, where we might not actually have a time to sit still, right, and talk about what we saw and what happened until either the next squad comes on and there's an overlap, and the sergeant or whoever the leader is sets us down and says, okay, we're going to take a pause right here and we're going to talk about this, or B, we never do, and that's, right. I think that's where we really miss it, is that when business is happening, when do you have that time? And, I don't know, hopefully there's some listeners or some leaders listening, because there's a huge value there where, maybe fire and EMS has it better than law enforcement, because they create that time of togetherness. Right. And, almost making it mandatory that, given call A, B, C, D, that you sit down and you say, hey, we're going to talk about this. You don't have a choice.
Right, and that like I say, with us working the 24/48, the crew that you're with, that's your family.
Right.
You know, you spend a third of your life with
Right.
those people. Same thing when you guys go to shift.
Right.
But, you know, obviously it's a little different for us because we're living with each other. You know, we're there for 24 hours. We eat, we sleep, we watch TV, you know, watch movies,
Right.
all the stuff firemen do.
And cook and
and
I
cook
mean, you
and,
have everything.
You know, work out while
Yeah.
we're getting paid, you know, all that good stuff. that
Sit
firemen
on the
do.
big lazy
Yeah.
boy recliners. We have these little rickety chairs
Yeah.
inside the police
I mean,
department.
sometimes we let the police officers come in and use the bathroom.
That's
you
nice.
know,
So, as long as you have good soap, I like to wash my
yeah,
hands.
yeah,
You know?
yeah. But yeah, that's I've looked back over my career, and that's been one of the driving things. Me and you were talking about it, you know, when we said what are we going to discuss, and I think that's a good, you know, that your support network, you know, it's starting with the people you work with and going to your house. You know, if you go to church or have religion in your life, you've
Right.
got that sect. You know, some people use that. So I think when you take it all and put it together, your support network is such a big deal when it comes to these things, and having other people that are like-minded that understand what you're going
Like-minded,
through.
yeah, absolutely. So now you haven't been in this isn't day one, week one for you. How long have you been in the business?
No, so I've been right out of high school. I went in the United States Marine Corps and was crash fire rescue in the Marine Corps. So in '94, summer in '94 is when I became a fireman, and I've been a fireman ever since. The local department that I work with, January will be 19 years. that I've
19
been with
years.
them.
Wow, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
you.
So let's talk about maybe some of the generational changes that you've seen, and how working through these processes have changed what you see that works and what doesn't work, and some of the buy-ins that you receive or some of the pushback that you receive when it comes to when you see a brother or sister heading down the wrong path, or someone that needs help, and what does that look like?
Yeah, so you know, some of the things that we often do. I know early on in my career, when you would talk about traumatic stress and PTSD and stuff, that was kind of taboo. You know, years ago in the '90s,
Right.
you know, that didn't exist. We didn't want to. If we don't talk about it, it doesn't exist.
And we're not weak.
Right. Yeah. And it was funny because I remember years ago talking to an old crusty chief. He was on his fourth marriage and drank heavily when he was off, and he tried to tell me that this job didn't affect him at all.
And that was a term of endearment.
Right.
Crusty, yeah.
Yeah, you know, it was.
Right.
You know, I said, "Well, Chief, you know, you're kind of the common denominator in those 4 marriages." You know?
Right.
You know,
Ta-da.
you or
Surprise, you're it.
You're a real bad picker of women, or there's a common denominator in these marriages.
Or
here.
you're a jerk.
Right, yeah.
Right.
And you know, and that's years ago. You know, it's always been in the first response community, because my dad, who's probably watching this, he's actually been in public safety for about 40 years, involved in some aspect or another. He was one of the first paramedics in the state of Florida in the 70s, up in the Panhandle in Pensacola. In that Florida, he was the first certified paramedic in Escambia County. Wow. And so he has a PhD in counseling, and is kind of an expert in traumatic stress and PTSD. So I tell people I've fortunately, for me, I've always had a great support network. I could, I could call him and have him talk to me as a dad. When I was growing up, he was a youth minister and a pastor, so he could talk to me as dad. He could talk to me as a religious person. He could talk to me as a firefighter. He could talk to me as a paramedic, and he could talk to me as a crisis counselor. Whatever hat I needed him to put on. So that's why I say, the big thing is really your support network. Keeping your support network big.
Absolutely. Support is so huge, and I'm grateful to hear that you had that type of support, growing up, and we talk about faith a lot of times, no matter what your faith is, but that keeps you grounded.
We kind of say that with a smile on our face, because there's an ongoing conversation that eventually everybody will kind of figure out that, and even when Doug was here, we talked about it. You got to believe in something bigger than yourself to have the hope to continue on. Hey, we're going to take a quick break, and we hope that you continue with us. Reach out to someone and let them know to tune in and listen to Survived. We'll be right back.
Rock your Halloween with Foghat, Pat Travers Band, and Savoy Brown. Together on one stage at Rockin' Halloween. Coming at you Saturday, October 26th in downtown Cocoa Village. Get your tickets at eventbrite.com or stop by Time Out Sports in Cocoa Village. Have a rockin' Halloween.
You're listening to Space Coast Podcast, home of the greatest podcasts on the Space Coast. If you're interested in becoming a sponsor or having your own show, email us at spacecoastpodcast@hotmail.com. Space Coast Podcast. Talk hard!
Hey, make sure you check out Space Cowboy Justice with your hosts, Blake Stewart and Paul Daly. We're going to be talking about interesting legal issues in the entertainment industry and everything geek. If you're into Star Wars, Star Trek, Lord of the Rings, comic books, we're talking about it. Coming at you from the Space Coast Podcast Studios.
Welcome back. Chris Hadaway, Karen Monda, Kevin Faulk, our special guest today. We are just right in the middle of the conversation of talking about first responders and specifically firefighters, EMS, and how that relates to all of this and what we can do to help each other. So I'm having a brave part. Well, we're trying to keep it light, but we want everybody to know that this hasn't been an easy conversation to even, from our perspective, to spark with firefighters and EMTs and to work together and have a unified front as far as, some of the big picture things that we're looking at is changing laws as far as, workers' comp and all these other things and going into all of the different facets of how to protect the first responder in their daily lives, past what they experience. So this is a big day for all of us because now we have the subject matter expert, somebody with 19 years of experience with a family background to help guide us in this conversation. So Kevin Faulk, he was just telling us that, he had family members, his father, and, we kind of smiled, Karen and I, because we've had this ongoing conversation of faith and hope and how important that is. So what kind of feedback are you getting from newer people, or what would you say to people that are coming into this realm of work as far as how to help guide them and keep them out of the trenches, newly, coming into this, because they're going to experience the bad call. I mean, we all have. Yeah. And what can we say to them, and what could I say as a law enforcement officer to the brother or sister that I meet working the opposite of what I'm doing?
Yeah, so one of the things I know our department, I think more and more departments, obviously I can't speak for the law enforcement side, but I know on the fire side, our department about 3 or 4 years ago, they actually, every new hire class that we do, I have about a 2.5 hour presentation on traumatic stress and PTSD that I give, as well as I teach at the college, EMT and medic, and almost every EMT class for the past 5 years, excuse me, I have about a 2.5 hour presentation that I give them because, the big thing is a lot of people, they truly don't understand what they're getting themselves into. Right. You right. watch TV and you see all the cool things that police officers and firemen and paramedics and EMTs do. But most shows don't really get into the mental health side of it, or what happens.
Edited for 25 minutes of TV,
right. And I tell everybody, for firemen, if I showed you what it was like in a house, it would just be turn the lights out and a bunch of guys talking like this.
Right.
It'd be pitch black, and nobody would want to watch that for 30 minutes.
Right.
Just like if they showed the average, you guys sitting there running radar for 30 minutes, that wouldn't be a very exciting show.
My wife rode along with me one time. One time she did a ride along, and the only thing she tells everybody, it was a down cat. And so we sat and watched this cat in the street until the animal services showed up, and he comes and this guy was educated when it came to cats. So he's like, oh, there's a feral cat colony, and then, you know, oh, this one's really old and it's got kidney problems, and you can tell it's on its way out. And I was like, that's it. So my wife, her literal perspective of what I do is just sit and watch down cats.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's better than some. You know?
Well, so now we have a dog. I thought about bringing him tonight, and you know, all I do is walk around. It's like a dog and pony show with him, and just get to talk to people. So she's like, you still haven't, you know, gotten any better than the cat. You know, you just got a big dog.
Yeah, you just got a bigger pet now
Right.
instead of a small cat.
So, Kevin, is Tim your dad?
Yes, he is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, Tim. I'm just reading his comment. It says peer support. I'm assuming for or peer support law to protect communication is essential. And when I think of that, that is something that's being really, really pushed on the law enforcement side, and I would assume on the fire side also. But in thinking of the community that you have in a fire station, you know, you guys can sit down together for dinner every night. Whoa, there's the train.
There's the train coming.
The train is coming
train
through. That we
coming.
call that Doug.
Yeah. He's here in spirit.
That's right.
It's like you already have essentially a peer support team because you're sitting amongst your peers. But when we think about law enforcement, it's something that we're trying to push into departments every single day, and more departments are putting together peer support teams, but more needs to be done.
You know, one of the terms I hate, it's not a problem until it's a problem, right? And so we've identified this problem, and now actually as Doug travels and brings back information to us, we see how far behind the 8 ball we are from other states and where they're at in protecting their first responders. And, you know, Florida is in the news a ton. And there's actually the Florida man. I was just going to say, well, for every Florida man, there's a first responder behind him. Yeah. You know, because we're the reason that they're in the news, because the Florida man wouldn't exist without us, right? So he either did something crazy and you had to respond, or he did something stupid and I had to respond. So
or crazy and stupid, and we both go.
And we both go, and it's a high five and a chuckle, and we move on. Yeah. So you know, so many times, like especially reading the number to start the podcast, 180 law enforcement officers that have lost their life to suicide. I want to get better every single day and create the conversation and know that the people that I work with have somebody or have a way to turn to somebody. For us, the and I hate to even, so I'm not even going to say it, but the group, the phone number that we're given to call, hey, you can call this 3-letter agency and this is supposed to help you, but it doesn't help.
Right.
And you know, so where do we go from there? I mean, getting everybody to march, and I'm not the political guy that says, oh, you know, government, but we have to go change something. And to do it together, I think this is a great opportunity to have both fronts working together, because it's going to benefit all of us. And eventually we're going to have a communications officer come and sit down with us, because, you know, there's a vast group of first responders. Yeah. And that, you know, some of them get left out. You know, in the city that I work in, one of our firefighters responded to a call, and it was one of his loved ones.
Right.
I couldn't even begin to imagine what that looks like, you know, and then to know everybody else that was involved with that. And when it hits home, I mean, that's a downward spiral waiting to happen right there. And I don't think we could ever do our best to get ahead of that, you know. Yeah. Always looking for an outlet to be able to, I mean, I've heard, like, where's Doug been? Out in Arizona, they have really strong laws regarding that.
Yeah, well, Arizona's doing an incredible job, and let me just chime in here, because I got
he called you out.
Yeah, he did call me out. He said hi to him and now your husband, babe. I miss you so much. You haven't even been gone a day, and I miss you.
She started off, the very first thing she said to me is, "Hi, Chris, I miss Doug," and I was like, "Oh, okay, well, I met her. I mean, you at least said hi." So, and then I said, "Oh, so you've changed your look. You don't even look like regular Karen. You look like different Karen." She put her hair up. I was like, "Who is this person?" Right?
But babe, maybe you can chime in. As far as Arizona, you're out there. I know you've seen some incredible things. We did our walk for responders out there, and the stuff that you saw in Arizona, the things that they're doing at both the fire stations, I think it might have been Tucson, fire stations and police departments were incredible. They have peer support teams set up. They know what they're doing. They're ahead of the game, and really, they're excited about the things we're doing, all the other organizations that are out there. They're just doing some great things. I think that the beauty of this tonight, having you here, Kevin, and Chris, and then,
of course, you're
myself
wonderful.
as a spouse. I think the beauty is that we are showing that we are creating an alliance
Absolutely.
with one another, and we can teach each other and we can learn from each other what, some of the things that I know that I've delivered food countless times to police departments, to fire departments. And the one thing that has struck me the most is that when you walk into, and Doug and I have taken cookies to fire departments, and when you walk into a fire station, it truly is like a family, a community. We're welcomed into the kitchens, and we sit around the kitchen, and it is, I hate to say it, but it is a different feel than when you walk into at least the police departments that we've walked into. It's a different busy, I guess, but there is a different feel. So I feel like this way, with us talking, we can start that dialogue of what can we do for each other better? What can we learn from one agency to the next, from one department to the next, and how can we help each other?
Has there been any, in your experience, Kevin, has there been anything that was just like so out of the ordinary that you were like, wow, that could really work big, or that could that would help guide or shape, what it looks like? Or has there been something that you were like, that's a turnoff, that doesn't work, and that we need to get out there so everybody else knows that, when we're having conversations like this, what's the overall consensus, I guess, is what I'm looking at.
So the overall consensus, most of the time when you talk about, traumatic stress and the events that we do, it really depends on the department. With my dad does a lot in Alabama. He actually, last year, helped. Last year, year before last, he actually helped create a law that got put into place in Alabama for first responders. Wow. That kept peer support and still like that it can't be subpoenaed, almost like a client privilege type thing that he got, and a couple other things that kind of were put in place for first responders. Traditionally, when I first got into it years ago, it was something you never talked about. If you don't talk about it, it doesn't exist. Right. So now you start getting people that actually, we have a critical incident stress management team at the fire department. Okay. I'm actually the team leader for that. And then we have a couple smaller teams that I have guys under me, but I guess team coordinator would be a better word for it. But we actually, we encourage, we try to put out a bunch of information for everybody, and we actually encourage people, hey, if you're having a problem, here's all of our numbers. And even we use a computer program for staffing, telestaff, that staffs our department. And one of the chiefs that's in charge, he actually, which was a great idea, he went in. Everybody always has like all their alphabets after their name, what you're certified in. So he actually went in and put CISM next to all the CISM team members. That way, if you're having a problem, you can literally go in there and say, "Oh, Kevin, and my cell number is in there." So it's. I want to say it's almost like the everybody picks at the younger generation now, right? But
they're better communicators, right?
I think in a way they are. They're not as afraid as some of the older guys like myself, and even guys that have more time in than me are sometimes to actually reach out to somebody and talk about it.
Question: do you think that that's because we are beginning to talk about this more, and so they haven't had all that time on the job, where they have kind of harbored everything and hidden everything and felt like I can't say anything. Now that we're talking about it more, to me, that would be fantastic news with the new guys coming up. Now that we are actually bringing this up and we're talking about it more, we see at least the younger generation that is more willing to make that call.
Yeah, I think that is. traditionally, like I was just saying, everybody picks on the younger generation for being snowflakes and everything like that. But, part of when I'm talking to people about first responders, specifically firemen, locally in the past 3 to 4 years, there have been three firemen that have committed suicide. Out of those 3 firemen, it's almost 75 years of experience between those 3 firemen. So it's not the young guys that are doing it. It's the guys that have all those years of in the medical field, you have things that are acute and things that are chronic, and you probably know from your wife's background. But acute, something that affects you right now.
Right.
Then chronic, I tell people I could probably sit down and name a half dozen calls, but over the course of 20 plus years, I couldn't sit down and name every call that I've been on.
Right.
But you have all those calls that just kind of, if you let them, it's just like a snowball effect. If you take it to the top of the mountain and you let it roll, it doesn't start out big, but by the time it gets to the bottom, it's taking up trees and all kinds of, it's creating devastation.
Right.
So I think you're, with that being said, with the nature and the air of everything these days, and especially with having local firemen that have committed suicide, and it's not, and some of them were well-known guys, that a lot of people knew.
Were any of them retired, or were they all active?
All 3 of them were active. Yeah, all 3 of them were active. Yeah. There have been 1 or 2 that I know of locally that were retired firemen that completed suicide. So, and see, that's when we were talking about that earlier, it raised the question in my head: is firemen, our careers, it's good and bad. It's good while we're doing it because we have that support network. We have the guys that we're going every 3rd day. So where sometimes I think in the fire rescue field, when guys medically retire, they retire. You now go from every 3rd day, you had a bunch of guys you could talk to you're retired now, and you have nobody to talk to.
Nobody.
And we've actually, our critical incident stress management team at the fire department, we've even looked at, we started going to having at least one representative. We have a retirees luncheon that they have every month.
Right.
Excuse me, and we try to send at least one guy from the SISM team just to hang out with the retirees and say, hey, if you need something, here's some numbers, call us.
That's actually a great idea. We're great with our unions and getting more money. We're great, making sure that our retirees and that our pensions and everything else is taken care of, but nothing for our mental health.
No.
Nothing for our mental health. And then, in our very first conversation, the very first time we did this podcast, one of the things that was brought up was, there's, everything's great until you leave, and then there's a complete disconnect. And so, one of the challenges I threw out there was, okay, we've identified something. Organize a local group of guys and just start meeting. Guys and ladies, start meeting when you're retired and say, okay, every 3rd Thursday we're going to meet at whatever barbecue shack that you like to eat, or hey, we're going to meet at this old fire station here, or whatever that looks like, and we're just going to get together and talk and have a good time. But we're going to also cover our mental health, and that probably getting back together and continuing the conversation would probably help some of that mental health stuff. Well,
and unfortunately, we've found that it's a group that really is, I hate to say it, but they're forgotten about, our retirees. I know when Doug went out on retirement, it's not that he was forgotten about, but the first few months he was so excited every day.
Sleep in,
he
do
was
whatever
just
I want
so
to
excited. But there came a point where it became a struggle for him. You start to lose that touch, that identity.
You lose value.
You lose value. There you go.
There you go.
Yeah,
See,
there you go.
And there's a huge value to all of this, to this whole conversation, because so we're here, we're having this conversation. Let's think about the audience that we're talking to. We need you to not only, and I say this every podcast, reach out to someone and tell them that you care about them. Just whoever it is, someone that you haven't talked to recently, or that you don't connect with a lot of the time. Reach out to them, look through your Rolodex, through your contact list. I guess we don't have Rolodex anymore, but scroll through your iPhone, through your Facebook, and reach out and touch base with someone and say, I care about you. I hope you're well. And then think about those retirees. Actually, August was just marked a year of one of my past partners retiring. And I can tell you, I have had to work double as hard since he retired because they didn't have an opportunity to replace him in my unit. But I think about him, so he was a rocker. You know, his day job after he retired was to play the guitar. So I know that like his mental health being immersed into another hobby and something else is good for him. But I still try to reach out and connect with him and just say, hey, bro, how are you doing? Because, you know, we actually spent a year together and it was a great time. But I don't see him. I have not seen him in a year's time, in a year and a half time. So I want to make sure that I have that opportunity. And that takes, you know, me saying, okay, let me step out of my comfort zone. Let me go find him. Let me seek him out. So I know that he's okay. We do one thing in the police department for our retirees where we get them together annually. That's one time a year. That's cool, but it's not enough because we know that I know of several people personally that are struggling that could use some extra just love. I mean, just the camaraderie that we have when we're working day in and day out. We got just a couple more minutes. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back with you. Caramonda, Kevin Faulk, Chris Hadaway. We'll see you right back here on Survived.
Rock your Halloween with Foghat, Pat Travers Band, and Savoy Brown. Together on one stage at Rockin' Halloween. Coming at you Saturday, October 26th in downtown Cocoa Village. Get your tickets at eventbrite.com or stop by Time Out Sports in Cocoa Village. Have a rockin' Halloween.
Hey, I'm Vinny with the all-new Vinny Marino podcast. I want you to join me every other Monday as we tackle all the craziest headlines from around Florida and truly explore and uncover what's missing. Also, we will invite the exciting guests from our community who have seen it all and aren't afraid to spill the beans about it. And finally, we can't forget about Vinny's top 3 rants and raves about traffic, restaurants, and events. Join us on Facebook as we go live and bring you behind the scenes of each show and let you be a part of it. The Vinny Marino Podcast, all Space Coast, super raw and unedited, straight to your dome all the time. Live from the Space Coast Podcast Studios. Listen everywhere you find podcasts.
You're listening to Space Coast Podcast, home of the greatest podcasts on the Space Coast. If you're interested in becoming a sponsor or having your own show, email us at spacecoastpodcast@hotmail.com.
Space Coast Podcast.
Talk hard!
All right, so Doug is not in the room right now, but he's barking orders. Don't forget to mention Vinny's show. Vinny, we love you. We'll probably bring you in here and let you get in on this conversation and throw down with us one day. Hey, welcome back. It survived. Chris Hadaway, Caramonda, Kevin Faulk from the local fire station, EMT, over 20 years of experience. His father is helped to be a foundation into the building blocks of not only here in Florida but in you said Alabama, which is incredible. So some of the things we've covered, we've talked about faith, and we've also talked about having the differences between law enforcement and firefighters, being able to the firefighters get to go back, or the EMTs get to go back and actually mull it over because they spend such a long time together, and we as law enforcement, we miss it because it could be a 10 or 12-hour shift. Some agencies maybe an 8-hour shift, but we don't do a really good job of debriefing. And then what we just covered was what it looks like for retirement. And Kevin said something pretty heavy that locally 3 of the gentlemen that have completed suicide had over 75 years of experience. Hey, I think we're missing something here, because if the younger generation is talking about it, well, apparently we haven't created an atmosphere or an opportunity for a conversation for people that are in their later terms of their careers to speak up and say, hey, I don't know how to handle this. Something's going on here, but I can't get rid of it. What do I do? So let's talk about some of the ways that we can get connected and some of, the different avenues that we're going to reach out. Not only you and I, the listener and the people in here talking about this, we're going to reach out and do our job and say, hey, I care about you. I miss you. I hope you're well. But what can we do other than just this initial contact? Who can we talk to? Kevin talked about the CISM team that locally is done, being available, giving his phone number out, and allowing through a mass system to know, so people know that they can contact him. But what are some other things that we can do?
Well, I know that for a while Doug was going to, and I think they were pretty much all retirees, law enforcement, fire, vets as well. There was a group that was getting together every week, I believe, and they were painting. With a purpose. Painting with a purpose.
That was good.
Yes.
I snuck that one in there.
Painting with a purpose.
Sorry.
But it was such community, and Doug really enjoyed it, not so much for the fact that he was painting, though he loves to paint and he's an amazing painter, but just because they got to have this conversation. They were men and women that were coming from similar backgrounds, and they got to have this conversation and just talk.
Right.
And that was very healing. So even things like that. I know in Arizona, and I believe it's Tucson, babe, correct me if I'm wrong. Was that a gurgle?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I finished the last of my pumpkin, and it was awesome, and it was coming back up to tell me how well it tastes.
That's the second show I've called you out on a
Sorry,
gurgle.
I apologize. I don't have one of them little buttons to silence me when I'm belching. I apologize again.
But there is, yes, it was a lady who does that. Thank you, Conrad, for pointing that out, because I know Doug loved it, and I know that when he has time, he will definitely go back and join them with that painting, because he just said it was awesome. But one of the things that there's this amazing fire station, and I think it's Tucson, but one of the things that they do is that they have purchased all these really, really old fire vehicles, and they have the retirees come back in and basically restore them. I mean, it's almost like a museum.
Antiques, rebuilding antiques. I love it.
The pictures were so incredible and beautiful. And Doug always jokes around. He says, cops wouldn't want to go back and shine their cars. But what if it was like, some really, really cool old cop car? I mean, something like that could be just so cool. Like maybe someone in Brevard County should get on board and get like a first responder museum and have all these retirees start.
We have one.
We do?
I think there is some kind of first responder. Like there's what is it?
The Police Hall of Fame.
The Police
Well,
Hall
the Police
of Fame,
Hall
right?
of Fame. Oh yeah,
I know the city of Orlando. Some of your bigger departments. The city of Orlando actually has their own museum. Like the city of Orlando Fire Department,
Right.
they have their own museum and have like some of their first steam pumpers.
Oh, so
and
cool.
vehicles if they've gone out. And it's funny you say an old car, because my dad actually has an old fire chief's car. It's like a 1960
really?
something red
Cool.
with a little gun bubble up on
Right,
top
right.
with
Yeah.
a red light. And he'll do in local parades and stuff like that. Take it, but yeah, any of the things. And I was looking up there, and Doug said, ask me about what we focus on when we have bad
To
calls.
talk about some of the things they focus on when they have a bad call.
Yeah, so with some of the training that I've had, and just with my dad, there's a simple little phrase that I tell people, and it's, you're a normal person having a normal reaction to an abnormal event. Mm-hmm. You're as normal as we can be. In this line of work,
Right.
none of us are really normal, but we're about as normal as we can be.
Right.
And I tell people, when you run that bad call, seeing dead babies, dead people, all kinds of the tragedies that we see day in and day out, most people only see that on TV. It doesn't exist in their world.
And they don't really see it on TV.
Right. It's not the real thing that they're seeing.
It's unicorns and rainbows. Most people live in a unicorn and
My
rainbow
favorite
thing.
thing, yeah.
Right. And so, whenever you're talking with people, especially just the other day, I had a student. we were at the ER. He did chest compressions. They brought in a code. He had never done chest compressions on anybody in his life. And I had to take it, like, after the call, me and him, went and sat down and made sure, because I could look at him and tell that, that
it's disturbing.
Right, it's disturbing. Right. And, over that, I've had students over the years that, doing their clinicals and stuff, they have the unfortunate or the fortunate of realizing, hey, this isn't for me.
Correct.
This isn't something that I want to do. Mm-hmm. Several years ago, I had four female EMT students that we worked a 6-year-old girl that had drowned in the ER on like a Black Friday.
Right.
And, two of them
are no
quit.
longer. Yeah.
They quit and said, hey, this ain't for me. And I've even had some people, even after like the talks that I do about traumatic stress and PTSD, I've had 1 or 2 students come to me and said, hey man, I guess I just didn't realize. I appreciate your talk, but I don't think this line of work's for me. And I tell people that's not the purpose of why I talk to you about this, because the fact of the reality is these days, most departments, I have to, give props to the department that I work for, our chiefs, for about 4 or 5 years now. We've had a talking to new hires back. We used to do it years ago, and it kind of went by the wayside. Now we've picked it back up. Is letting people know that there are avenues. We do. I tell people they train us and first responders to save other people, but not how to save ourselves.
Absolutely. And you said that perfect.
Yeah. I mean, quite often, you see people that they're the best police officer, the best EMT, medic, fireman you've ever met, but their personal life is a train wreck.
Mm-hmm.
And we would be fine if we could just leave that on and never go home.
Right.
But it's clear that at the end of the day you got to go home, and that's where it starts, and that's not easy. I think there's a lot to be said for whichever first responder it is that speaks up and says, hey, this isn't for me. I didn't realize that this was the depth that this went to, and there's no shame in packing your stuff and saying this isn't for me. Right. We want the people that are dedicated and that want to be there, but if you don't have if it's not for you, then that's okay, and you can identify that in yourself and step away. And no one, I've been a part of many police circles where we recall, hey, that guy worked here for a short while. Yeah, I have the most respect for him because he identified that this job wasn't for him, and he said, I'm done. I mean, in a day's time, he went to a call that he couldn't bear, and he never came back. So there's a lot to be said for somebody that would stand up and say that this isn't for me. I also get the other side of it. So my wife is also a first receiver. So she works in
I see her.
Yeah, and she works in the emergency room locally. And I can tell you my house is a different house when there's a baby that doesn't make it, because that's never, we have babies in the house. Our youngest now is 4, but none of us can imagine what that looks like when you lose a little one. And we will do everything that it takes in our power. And just to even address it in my own home, can be a challenge, because I don't want to talk about it. Honestly, that it doesn't make me comfortable. It breaks my heart. And being a father, I'm a sap now. I'm soft. I cry at the drop of a hat.
Yeah.
I'm very emotional. So to even be able to talk about that in the house, it's not easy. But we have to talk about it, and we have to work through it together. And I've been blessed that I have a good teammate. But if you don't have somebody at home to talk to, it sounds to me like maybe your answer is your partner right next to you, or someone else. Go ahead.
Well, this was something that I wanted to ask and maybe kind of compare, contrast. I know as a spouse of a law enforcement officer, and a law enforcement officer who suffered greatly. I know what it was like for him to get off shift and immediately come home and need that decompression time and kind of that no talk time, because you get done with your shift, you get in your car and you head home, and everything that you dealt with at the police department is still with you. Every bad call, every jerk you ran into, you're still dealing with that when you get home, and there's no decompression time. I'm curious, and I don't know if you know the answer to this, or if maybe you've had feedback from fire spouses. I'm curious if there's a difference because of the fact that firefighters get to spend that time with their brothers and sisters and decompress after a call and have that community, if you will, before they go home.
I think that's a two-part question, yes and no.
Okay.
So yes, I think we do get to start decompressing. However, if you look in traumatic stress and the way that it affects our body, police officers are a perfect example. My dad tells some great stories of different things, and being an officer involved shootings, there's times that the officers don't even hear the gunshots that they fired until 2 and 3 days later. And so it's the same thing, fire rescue. Yeah, you have that time to decompress, but what you don't have, is sometime, depending on what your spouse does for a living. Obviously, your spouse working in the local hospital is a little bit different, kind of almost like mine. But if you have a spouse that's a teacher, or have something that you don't see the worst of humanity day in and day out,
it's hard to understand.
It is hard to understand, and I've seen, and I've done it. Even having a wife that's done it, I've been on the jerk side of it, of her trying to tell me a story and be like, well, why didn't you just do this? And then she'll just give me that stare like
the answer was not that clear.
So is it safe to say, I know on the law enforcement side, there's a huge cry for spousal support. Spouses need support. With Survive First, I provide that support for our spouses when they're suffering, when they're going through something. Do you think it's fair to say that need is also there on the fire side for spouses, that they kind of need an outlet as well?
Oh, 100%. I would say, especially, from a CISM standpoint and talking to guys and their families, especially like the stay-at-home moms. You have stay-at-home moms, and there's nothing wrong with that. God bless every woman that does that, by the way.
Right.
I'd rather go run in burning buildings than do that.
Right.
But you have the stay-at-home mom, and where I've talked with guys, they're like, man, I just wanted to go home and be left alone. My wife, for 24 hours, he was just at the fire department, and she had a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old to try to conversate with. He comes home, and she's ready to talk to another human being that's her age, and that's the last thing that guys want to do. And I'm sure it's the same way law enforcement.
It is, but I think that education in that area is so important. You talk about when you have new recruits that come through, you have a 2-hour course that you give them about trauma and things like that. And I know there are some departments, and I've said this before. Our friend Holly out in Utah. She's the law enforcement officer, a sergeant, and within their department, they bring in all spouses of new hires, and they put them through, I want to say it's an all day or at least half day training, if you will, where they try to let them, try to teach them what they're in for, because it's a different life, whether it's law enforcement, fire, corrections, it's a different life. And so I think that education is so key, not only for our first responders, but also to make sure that as we continue to talk about this conversation, that we also know that we have to help our spouses so that we can help you guys. We can understand you better, and we can be there for you when you need us the most.
Yeah, at the fire department, whenever we have an activation of the CISM team, or one of us go to a station to talk to guys or gals after they run calls, the sheet that we give them is from the International Association of Critical Incident Stress Foundation, ICISF. It's actually a sheet. It's front and back, and it's actually something you can take home and give your wife. It actually tells your family and friends, hey, over the next 24 to 72 hours, when they're acting like this, that's normal. And that's the biggest thing.
I think if we can get that and post that on the Survive First Facebook page or
I'll get it
website.
Too.
That would be great.
And that way, anybody can go on and pull that off, and it just keep it as a tool in your toolbox to help somebody.
Oh, 100%, and it's helped. I know a lot of guys that have brought it home to their spouses after calls and stuff, and they're like, man, who would have thought that little piece of paper could have made my life easier?
Well, because we just don't understand in the day in and day out of the things that we're dealing with. there's no way we can comprehend, and put on top of us what you guys are dealing with. And like you said, when, we just want you to come home and we just want to talk to you, but that's not always at that moment in time. That's not always exactly what you need. There will be a moment in time where that will help, but maybe not right then.
Right. So I want to take an opportunity to say, if somebody has helped you, Zach Campbell just responded, "Hey, Kevin, thanks for helping me in my time of need." Having a conversation with them, that helps. If someone has helped you, that took a lot of courage to put that, on a Facebook feed to say, "Hey, thank you. You did help me." If someone's helped you, could you identify that person and just say thank you? You never know, just by saying, "Hey, because you did this, that helped me." You might help that person get through something else. Simple little task. Have that personal courage to step out on that limb and help somebody. Because I always revert back to, I think, of Doug, and he says that, somebody, JT walked in and just smiled at him, and that helped him.
Best smile on the planet.
Best smile on the planet. And he does. If you get the opportunity to see JT smile, everybody will agree with me. He does have the best smile on the planet.
We'll have to just post a picture of his mouth one day.
I think we'll do that on a break or something. I'll get some kind of dentist to throw us a bone and, give us, JT's smile. But that changes people, just recognizing and saying thank you, or you helped me, everybody. So everybody that I went through the police academy with, they all signed up because they wanted to help people. Mm-hmm. That's pretty profound. Every single person, no one wanted to go out and hurt themselves or somebody else. They all wanted to help. And I believe that that's probably the same in the fire EMS realm. And so we have a bunch of people that want to help, and we can't help ourselves. Right. And just being vocal and saying, "Hey, I need help, and I don't even know what help looks like," or, "Hey, I think you need help because I'm identifying that this is out of the ordinary. This isn't the behaviors that you've had in the past. Let's get some help. Let's talk." I mean, just engage the conversation. It could go very far. And to know, and I hope everybody is listening, we're not too far off. We live and breathe the same stuff. Mm-hmm. We go through the same types of calls. I mean, every traumatic call that I've been to, there's been a firefighter that responded there with me. So, I mean, they're either right ahead of me or right behind me, because we're both going there full tilt and boogie to help somebody, because that's what we signed up for. And how we deal with it. I mean, I've helped move gear because there weren't any words. No one could say, "Hey, I just need to get the hell out of here." We all need to go to our place and blow off some steam real quick, and then we'll get back to work. I know for me, it looked like another call. I never stopped to think that, you guys could actually go and debrief for a minute, and to start putting those things into place. Every agency, be the change that you want to see. I mean, if it's not working out in your agency, if you don't have the support yet, just be the change. I mean, start fighting that battle, and help is on its way. I think the more that we talk about it, we're going to get that help out there, and we'll start to change. If we can't change the government and change the laws, we can change the hearts of people, and we can change it through talking to them and telling them identifying the problem. So that's a lot to be said. Karen, Kevin, y'all want to close us out? I mean, there's, I don't want to take anything from you. There's a great conversation. Thanks for being here.
For hours and hours.
I know, we really could. Well, I think we say this at the close of every show, or at some point in every show. No matter who it is, reach out. Absolutely. Whether it is to your peer support team, if you have one, whether it's to your spouse, whether it's to Survive First, or any other of the numerous organizations that are out there to help first responders, whether it's your pastor, a therapist, your chief, whoever it is, reach out. We're talking about this now. Yeah. And so
it's official.
It is. It's official. We're talking about this, and it's okay to reach out. If you don't reach out, that's when you run into serious problems. So there's so many people, so many great organizations out there to help. We just ask you, reach out, because there is someone there who wants to talk to you.
Absolutely. Reflect and take it all in. Reach out to someone. I mean, please pick up the phone and just call someone and tell them you love them. Yeah. I mean, if
spouses as well.
Absolutely.
Yes.
remember who's in your home with you and who's fighting and bearing those burdens with you. It's really tough. Hey, Kevin Faulk, thank you for being here.
Hey, man,
thanks for having this
me.
conversation.
Yeah.
We hope
you.
to have you back. Doug, we miss you.
Yes.
Follow us again 2 weeks. We will be right back here.
Couple things I'm going to throw out there. November 9th is the IAP 321 Represent 5K. We are one of the beneficiaries for that 5K, so we hope you guys will go on sign up for that, and it is the perfect way to get ready and start preparing for our Run for Responders 5K, which happens on January 4th. That is going to be an incredible night out in Cocoa Village. We have the streets are lined with police and fire vehicles. The lights are going. It's just an incredible night. Last thing I will say about that, we are I think we are under 2 weeks now for you guys to go on sign up and get your early registration fee of just $25. First responders, I believe, are $20. But all others are $25, and that price will go up to $30 on October 29th. So please sign up because you're going to do it anyway. We are already talking about our medal. Doug and I have seen a mock-up of it, and
You'll definitely want to have it.
It's pretty awesome. So get on there now, Run for Responders 5K, sign up, and come see us.
We love you. We'll see you, and I think we are out.
Yep, Doug will be back in 2 weeks.